Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We are continuing our State of the Division series by having a look at the state of the AFC North. I'm joined this week by regular co-host Joe and Byron. Welcome back, chaps. And we've got a very special guest covering who's going to give us some fantastic insight on all the teams in the division, but especially the Cleveland Browns. We've got Bobby G joining us. Bobby, welcome to the show. First time on. It's a pleasure to have you.
How you doing, fellas? Thanks for having me on this beautiful Sunday morning.
Nice.
Coming to you live from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah, we've got quite the stretch. We've got here in the UK, we've got Joe in Canada, Byron out just outside of Chicago, and Bobby G out there in Vegas. And one hell of a weekend it has been in Vegas with everything that's been going on. Once again, Bobby, thanks for coming on. Just straight up then, where can our fans and followers catch you, and what kind of stuff is it that you are involved in making?
I'm just good at running my mouth about sports, all sports, particularly Cleveland sports, football and basketball. And if anybody wants to hear me run my mouth, they can catch me on social media at going through a transition. So it's going to be GameTime_Bobby G on Twitter and Instagram. Or if you want to, stare at my ugly mug while I talk my spit, you can catch me on YouTube, anywhere you enjoy your podcast. And it's going to be Game Time with Bobby G, which will be coming to you this fall every Friday. And then also through the Let's Talk Sports Network, me and Dan Harris going to bring everybody a different kind of debate show. It's going to be called Prove Me Wrong, where I'll have a guest on every week. I will say something outlandish like, I don't know, Spud Webb is the greatest player to ever play in the NBA. And I'll bring on a guest who try and prove me wrong, which I will win every week. So, that'll also be coming to you this fall. So that's where the people can see me and hear me.
Cool. Thanks very much, Bobby. Yeah, go give Bobby a follow and go give his content a watch. It's fantastic. And yeah, Let's Talk Sports. We'll point there. That's kind of how we've got together. So thanks to Dan as always. We are live on the Let's Talk Sport YouTube channel, Facebook page, as well as the Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover Twitter account. So we're going to get into all things AFC North, and then we'll obviously profile and preview the teams for 2023, and then we'll finish up by having a look at the futures markets like we've been doing. So let's just get right into it. Let's start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Pittsburgh Steelers went through 2022 9-8, yet another season 500 or above. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's 19 in a row where they finished 500 or better. They missed out on the playoffs through a tiebreaker with Miami, and they went to rookie QB Kenny Pickett pretty early last year. So he came off the bench in week 4 and then played out the rest of 2022. The big things happening in Pittsburgh, they offset the loss of cornerback Cam Sutton in free agency with Patrick Peterson, and they also went and made a trade for Allen Robinson for the Rams. Bobby, we'll open it up to you. We'll fire it across to you straight away as our new guest. What's kind of your kind of view on how the power of the Pittsburgh Steelers are shaping up heading into 2023?
They're the most consistent team in the NFL. I'm going to say they're probably the most well-coached team in the NFL. Mike Tomlin is going to have these guys ready to play every week, no matter what the roster looks like. But as far as that roster, I think one thing that'll hit them huge is the loss of Sutton. I think he's one of the best slot corners in the league, if not the best. And the way, obviously, the game is played today, a lot of spread offenses, multi-receiver sets. That slot corner, to have a guy who's able to hold his own and keep that position in check. You got guys in the league like Cooper Kupp who just dominates you from the slot. Kind of started Patriots, kind of showed the league the way with guys like Wes Welker and Amendola in the slot just killing people. I think that's going to be a huge loss. But I think the addition of Joey Porter Jr. could also be depending on how quickly he adapts to the NFL game. He could help, cover that loss. But the Steelers, there's what can you say? They're consistent.
Extremely consistent, yeah. And Matt Thomas done one hell of a job. Joe, to Bobby's point there about kind of the loss of Cam Sutton, do you think they've done enough in bringing in Peterson, Keanu Neal, I guess, as well, and then also drafting Joey Porter Jr. to kind of offset the loss of Sutton?
Yeah, I agree with Bobby. Like you said, it is a big loss. It is. I think it all depends on the coaching because I think Patrick Pearson's had, I think, he had a down year, and then last year he had like a good year again. So it depends what Patrick Pearson you actually get. So it depends on what the coaching jobs are doing in the back end, and if Joey Porter Jr. can come in straight away, or it might be something he has to wait a year. But the fact they got to 9-8 with the squad last year, I think that just shows how good the coaching staff and Mike Tomlin is. I think, like you said, probably one of the best in the league. The fact that I managed to get that squad in to get that record, and yeah, I think it's going to be something similar around that kind of place. And I'll just shout this straight away. I think to me this is probably the most interesting division coming up. Probably this or the AFC East. I think they're close ones, are the ones where I think every team is really good, and I think I'd be surprised if certain teams don't make the playoffs, but I wouldn't be shocked who wins this division. I think whoever, like all the 4 teams could win this division. I wouldn't be like, wow, that's a huge shock for that team to win it, just because I think they're all very close. And I think, like you said, with the Steelers going 9-8, I think they have made some improvements, and another year with the quarterback having another year, could they push that up as well? So I think it's really interesting how they're going to go this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. We did the NFC North last time, and that's a pretty similar division in terms of you kind of feel like wide open, and that's the feeling I get in terms of the AFC North as well. I do think it is wide open. I don't think it's clear cut, and I think it's going to be a real exciting one. You mentioned there about Kenny Pickett. Byron, what do you think we'll see out of Kenny Pickett heading into kind of his second season?
I think he will improve, but I wish that I don't want to call someone's fire in and say I wish, but like Matt Canada inspires zero confidence. For 2 years in Pittsburgh so far, it's been 2 dull, uninspiring years. I mean, he was playing with the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger and a rookie Kenny Pickett, who I wasn't really enamored with as a first-round quarterback anyway. So I'm not saying he had a ton to work with, but I don't think he's helped his quarterbacks, especially a rookie quarterback. I don't think he's helped. I think this year you're maybe going to see more like old school Steelers football, like we see here. They took Broderick Jones and moved up to get him in the first round. Darnell Washington might say tight end on it, but I ain't expecting him to be running too many routes, although he is a weapon in the passing game. But I think he's there as a 6-foot lineman. I think Najee Harris is going to have about 7,000 touches this year. It's just going to be pound that rock. Maybe not great for Deontay Johnson in fantasy, but I think the Steelers are going to try and pound the ball, keep games close. Defense is very strong. I mean, if TJ Watt plays 17 games instead of, he missed about half the season last year. I think he played 9, 10, 11 games. If he plays all 17 games, that defense, I mean, they won, 9-8 last year? They would have snuck in the playoffs if he played 17 games last year. So, like Joe said, I think it's a tough division. It's a close division. I have them finishing bottom of the division, but it's because it's such a close division. All 4 teams are really well managed and really well set. I like what they've done in the offseason without being, I wouldn't give them like an A+. I don't think they've done anything like revolutionary. I think if they change OC, I think I would have felt a lot better about the offseason though.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about it. It's felt very turgid offensively, hasn't it, for the Steelers the last couple of years. I was quite impressed with Pickett. I thought it took a while to get going, but yeah. I think certainly down the back end as well, his kind of relationship and that connection he was building up with Pickens was particularly impressive, and should inspire hope of Pittsburgh being able to move the ball through the air. You mentioned they've got Deontay Johnson as well. So I think Pickett does have some weapons. Could he have done with another one? Possibly. Maybe just to give him that little bit of extra help. But,
another one that isn't Allen Robinson, certainly.
Yeah, something like that. Allen Robinson. And
R.I.P. Allen Robinson.
I mean, teams still, they see something in Robinson, right? He's got, where's he gone the last few years? From Dallas, where, was it Dallas?
No,
Bears.
Jacksonville, Chicago, LA. But I mean, he always gets a pass because he always plays with bad quarterbacks. And then he finally went to Matthew Stafford, who was a good quarterback, and it was like, oh, maybe he's just washed. And I mean, we're saying teams still believe in him. The Rams are paying him $10 million to not be there in exchange for like a 6th or 7th round pick. I don't think anyone's really believing in Allen Robinson today, me included. I don't believe in that. Sorry, Alan.
He's just a pro.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that you bring. He's there to basically show George Pickens how to be a pro.
Yeah, and
to help him elevate his game.
There's talk of him just commanding the slot role, which I don't think has been his game all of his career. But if he can do it and he comes in and, like you say, he's a good pro, he's a good soldier, he's played with bad quarterbacks his entire career. So Kenny Pickett might be one of the better ones. He's not Blake Bortles, certainly. it can't be a net negative, certainly. So,
it's interesting. I think the Steelers have had a pretty good off season. There's some key pieces they've got there. I was a big fan of Joe Porter Jr. And I was infuriated that Dallas didn't draft him when he was there on the board in late 20s, but he fell to Pittsburgh, and I think he's a fantastic pick. The trade with the Patriots for Broderick Jones. I think the Steelers are set up, and I see them maybe winning another game or two, but we'll get into that. So we'll do our round of floor and ceiling. Joe, do you want to kick us off? Floor and ceiling for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yes. So it's tricky. Like, it feels like each team could go. It could be where everyone's just 9-8, and it's just depending on. So I'm going to say floor's probably, I'd say 6 or 7 is probably the floor. And I think, because I was having a quick look at the schedule today, and the AFC North, they have to play one team from NFC North, AFC East, and AFC West. And the Steelers of them divisions, they get the Patriots, Packers, and Raiders. So possibly like not the best team in each division. So I think it's that kind of like little scheduled what could actually affect the division. So I think probably the ceiling, they could probably win 11 or 12 if everything goes right, and if they sneak a few division games, and then if they've got like an easier schedule going forward, then yeah, I think probably 12 could be their ceiling.
Cool. Bobby, give us your ceiling. What do you see then the Steelers as a kind of their floor and ceiling for 2023?
All right, Steelers fans, don't hate me, but I think the Pittsburgh Steelers live in the smallest house on earth. I think their floor and ceiling is the exact same. I got them just locked in at a 9-8 season. I don't think they'll win more. I don't think they'll win less. They'll just be that team. I think they could actually sneak into the playoffs with that record as well. But I think the other teams in the division have just taken a bigger step that the Steelers had. They've made some moves to improve. Definitely attempted to shore up the offensive line, which will help Harris and Pickett. But I think just the moves made by the Browns, the Bengals, and the Ravens were just give them more of an edge.
And then that just begs a bit of a question from me just before we move on. So let's say the Steelers go somewhere 9-8 again, maybe sneak into the playoffs. Obviously don't go far or don't get into the playoffs. How long do Pittsburgh, does the ownership or just carry on by just sort of saying, yeah, we're kind of okay just to keep this middling going on? Because as great as Tomlin has been, and he has been, and you'll find no bigger fan of Mike Tomlin than me, I promise you, it's been a very long time since they've been particularly a threat in the AFC. So where does that leave Tomlin, or is that on Tomlin to make the decision to walk when he feels it's the right time?
I feel Mike Tomlin is one of 3 coaches in the league that have just earned the right to quit when they're ready. I don't think the only way Mike Tomlin hits the hot seat for me is if that defense starts to fail. Like it's known he's a defensive guy. He's coming. It's kind of like the Brown. Our coach is an offensive guy. If our offense starts to go, look for Stefanski to be on the hot seat. Pittsburgh exact same way. They've had 3 head coaches in the last 70 years. But the one thing that's rotated is that coordinator position. Anytime that, they've gone through how many different offensive coordinators. So I think they'll do it again. It's known that the offensive coordinator isn't the most liked person on the team. So, Tomlin's safe as long as that defense stays in that top 12 range. If the offense falters, they'll keep him and they'll just rotate another offensive coordinator in and try and make it work. But yeah, Tomlin, he ain't going nowhere.
Cool. Very interesting to start see if we just carry on. How long does it last? But could be forever. Byron, floor and ceiling before we move on from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I love that phrasing from Bobby, the smallest house in the league. Yeah. And I kind of agree. I haven't gone 8 and 9. I think they're somewhere between 8 wins and 10 wins. So yeah, real small house. I don't think they're not getting past 1 game in the playoffs unless they get really hot somehow and the O-line really solidifies and they pound it in cold weather somewhere. I just don't see it. Like I said, I'm going 8 and 9. It's possible to actually think they don't go 9 and 8 though somehow. Feels a bit like the Jeff Fisher Rams of they'll just go mediocre. And fully agree on Mike Tomlin isn't on any kind of hot seat. I think coaches, any coach. I mean, I called for Bill Belichick being on the hot seat this year, a few episodes ago. I think coaches can and should be on the hot seat regardless of what they've done. But Matt Canada's such an easy scapegoat to come to the end of the season and go hey, it's not you, it's me. And I think kind of like my view on the Patriots was like, I think someone else could maybe get more out of the Patriots. I don't know who's getting more out of this roster than Mike Tomlin. Like, I just don't. I don't think it's necessarily because of a legacy thing of keeping him around because he's been great. I think it's because he's still one of the best coaches in the NFL now, like in 2023. So I think it's worth the question because the record hasn't been what Pittsburgh football would demand, but I don't think he should be close to a hot seat right now.
That's fair enough. And I'm probably quite similar, but I just think I like a lot of the moves that the Steelers have made. I think a lot is there is a huge what if or a big dependency on, does TJ Watt stay fit? And he's had his problems with injury, and that feels like they're more likely to reoccur as time goes on. But if TJ Watt plays 17 games, that defense will be very, very good. And then that keeps you in a lot of games. So, yeah, I can see all 4 teams win, but I think the Steelers, they could absolutely win the division with 11 wins. Probably wouldn't need more than that, 11, maybe 12. And be a really solid but not particularly exciting football team. And, yeah, I think the streak continues. I don't think they'll get less than 9 wins. I think the streak will continue and we'll never, ever break. I mean, it will do at some point, obviously. But, yeah, I just don't think it's going to break anytime soon. Mike Tomlin will find a way to win 9 football games. Cool. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Bobby, rather than me spieling off the Cleveland Browns, I'll let you take lead on this if that's okay. So just kind of give us a bit of your kind of quick assessment on how 2022 went before we get into the moves that the Browns have made heading into 2023.
2022 existed? I thought the calendar went from 21 to 23. I'm sorry. But 22, it was what it was. I've heard some talking heads on TV say it was a gentleman's punt season, but and here's where a lot of my own community hates me because I keep it a buck. If you thought the Cleveland Browns were going to compete for a playoff spot in the 2022 football season, you were just not. You're a homer. There was no way. Like if you told me any team, and if I'm a fan of any team in the league, hey, your starting quarterback's going to miss 70% of the season. Can your team make the playoffs? The answer is probably no. Even with the Chiefs, even with the Eagles, like if you take away Mahomes, Hurts, Herbert, Burrow, and just say we're going to take 70% of the season away, how do you think that team's going to do? You're going to say it's a non-playoff team. So I know a lot of the fan base was optimistic, but no, we came in knowing what it was. It was basically, let's collect some talent, see what we have. When Deshaun gets here in week 11, let's see how he meshes, see what he does, see what he doesn't like. Let's see how we can put this team together for 2023. And that's exactly what they did. And because of that, I like where we're sitting today.
And there's a quick question just for me on Deshaun Watson and around. Obviously, once they made the trade, they kind of knew that they were going to miss him for an extended period of time, and that was the part of the thinking. I had to be part of the decision making when kind of going ahead and making the trade, understanding that. How much did the stuff around, and this, I'm just going to call it a circus. How much did the circus around Deshaun Watson? How much did that have an impact on the 2022 Browns? Even though obviously expectations were already very limited.
It had a lot because again, as a player, like I couldn't put myself in their shoes, but just for an attempt. Once upon a time, when I was a part of the working class community, and at my job, I knew when there's going to be a transition of management. You got your guy; he's a great leader. You like him. You know what you get every day. But then they say, "Hey, we picked up this young exec from this new company. He's going to bring great ideas, this and that. He'll be coming in the fourth quarter." We're going to make that it's all transitions are difficult. So it's like you come in, you run, you get used to the style of offense, and then, everything changes. We're not running 13 personnel anymore and going, up the gut with Nick Chubb. We're going to go 4 wide. Like it's a change in the culture shock, and the guys knew it was coming. Like it's on your mind every week. So, trying to remain competitive, trying to remain professional in your job is difficult. So I'm going to say it weighed a lot.
Yeah, I don't think nobody goes out to lose in the NFL. Right. The players aren't wired like that, and the financial implications of it, and on what wins get you. So I get that. It's very tough to. Yeah. I'm not saying write off a season, but it is tough and must be tough for a fan base to kind of sit and watch that and know kind of we're not really doing everything we can to win this year, and that's tough, right? What do you think?
And plus, Jacoby Brissett played unbelievable football. So don't shout out to him. He did his job. You couldn't ask for anything more from that guy.
Putting in kind of a position where he knows he's got 11 weeks, 12 weeks, and then he's coming out because Watson's going in.
Right.
With that, then, Bobby, how do you feel then the Browns have approached this offseason then to set them up for success in 2023?
Well, first of all, and like, believe it or not, Kevin Stefanski's been in the NFL. He's going into his 4th season. This is, in 4 years, this is the first normal regular season preseason he's ever had. He came in during COVID, so everything was Zoom and online. So you had that pretty much for 2 years. Then you had the new rules and regulations on what you couldn't do as far as training. Then you had the quarterback situation. This is the first time he's going into a preseason knowing who his quarterback is going to be, being able to physically work with his players, rookies and better. It's like 4 years in. That's insane. So to start there, that can be a huge advantage. Second, shout out to Andrew Berry. I think his construction of the roster has been immaculate. You saw what the holes were from last season, obviously on the defensive line, shored that up. We knew we need help in the wide receiver room, got that taken care of. He spent his money very wisely, shored up areas in the coaching area that were concerned. Joe Woods was probably the most hated man in Cleveland the last 2 seasons. Just couldn't get right on defense. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Life with Eddie Murphy. Can't get right. That was Joe Woods. Just couldn't get it right on defense. But now we've got Schwartz in there. Should be a huge upgrade. We got Bubba Ventrone, who should shore up our special teams. Cost us about 3 games last season. Inability to recover onside kicks. They looked at last season and they used it for what it was for. Let's see what we need and let's fix it up. And I think we're set up for a huge run in 23.
Yeah, I think I'm with the knowing obviously the picks that it costs to get Watson and being limited in the draft and not joining the party till the 3rd round.
Right.
But I think kind of the combination of what they were still able to go and get in the draft and then in free agency, I think they've had a pretty good off season. Joe, what do you kind of think of where the Browns are sat then heading into the new season?
So I think it's fairly obvious in terms of how the Cleveland Browns season is going to go is all about Deshaun Watson. If he performs, he doesn't have to again be what he was before, like a top 5 quarterback. But even if he gets to like a top 10, a top 12, then the Browns are going to be a lot better than last year, because when he came back, he wasn't a top 12 quarterback. His performances weren't good enough. So I think this season depends on Deshaun Watson. If he can get similar or close to what he used to be, they're going to have a great year. If it goes and he stays how he's performing by the end, which could have been a result of many, many things, but if that's who he is now, then it's a good disastrous season. And it is, I think if that does happen, then Stefanski and Berry's going to be on the hot seat just based on you've spent all this capital, the time, the money to get this quarterback in. And if that doesn't work, then it's like, well, who else is there to blame? And it's probably one of them. If they go, 5 or 6, they win only 5 or 6 games again this year, I think at least one or maybe both might be going. So I think they're the team with the biggest pressure going into this year of having to actually win some games and have a good season.
Yeah, you're talking about kind of the move that they made to it was almost going all in, isn't it, on Deshaun Watson? And there's a thing there that if it doesn't, and we're not saying it's not going to work out, but if it doesn't work out, how far does that set you back as a franchise and a team just because of the sheer capital and investment that it's taken? And it's
everything surrounding it as well. The whole media and everyone's like ready for them to fail. So if they fail, then everyone's going to jump on them. So it's definitely it's that kind of situation. But yeah, I think it's going to be, and we don't know what he's like, because I think, like you said, last year is probably a write-off. So again, coming into this year, it's been 3 years since last time he had like a full season with Hooson. So we don't know what he's going to be like and what he actually is with a full preseason and everything else going on. So I am curious how he goes on, because last year, if he plays that last year, then that's just that's a disaster really for the Browns if that's how he goes.
So that's the only thing I disagree with most people on. It's like we don't know. We know exactly what Deshaun Watson is. He's a 3-time Pro Bowl in this league, and it's like the talking heads on TV. They talk about him like he's a rookie. And you see a lot of these charts and who's this, and you got C.J. Stroud rated above Deshaun Watson and Bryce. And I'm like, are you serious? These guys who have 0 attempts, 0 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 completion percentage, rated above a guy who's a 1, 2, 3-time Pro Bowler in this league, a former MVP candidate who once threw for almost 5,000 yards, and we don't know what. No, we know what he is. The only question is can he get self-confidence back?
Yeah.
To be who he knows he is.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's what I meant. Like you mentioned, like, is he going to come back mentally? Is that like who he actually is now, or is it just suddenly because there's been plenty of sports stars where suddenly they just drop off a cliff and you can't. And it's usually the mental aspect and the actual and that to come back with everything what's gone on the last few years.
Yeah, cause you look at these talking heads. It's like he's the only quarterback in history who's ever been questioned. If Tom Brady broke his leg, we didn't question whether he could come back and be who he was. Peyton Manning broke his freaking neck. We didn't question whether he could come back or not. Michael Vick went to prison and came back, and we didn't question whether or not he could be Michael Vick.
To be fair, they all came back and were good.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to ask that, Bobby. Like, how do you feel like last year went? Yeah.
We don't really know who Deshaun Watson is.
Right.
We know who Deshaun Watson was.
Right.
If we say who Deshaun Watson is a subpar Jacoby Brissett. If we go on what he done most recently.
But I would ask you this. Team we just finished talking about, Pittsburgh Steelers. Look at Kenny Pickett's numbers, look at Deshaun's. They're very similar. But yet we give promise to Kenny Pickett and we say that Deshaun Watson is somehow diminished. Like how can those two things can't be true? I'm not putting
Kenny Pickett anywhere near my top 20 quarterbacks in the league. To be fair.
No, but I'm just saying the way it's viewed. Like Kenny Pickett is looked at as promising. And Deshaun
the same kind of thing. I think a better comparison is Russell Wilson, who was being good and fell off. Yeah. Deshaun Watson has been great and looked like he fell off. Like, I don't think he's done. I don't think he's washed. But I don't think it's an unfair conversation.
Yeah.
There is a degree of you're only as good as you are.
Yeah. It's just that time and sheer amount of time out of the league. And there's a bit to say, actually, maybe that has him playing in those. How many did he play? 5, 6 games down the stretch last year? 6, yeah. Is that not the opportunity for him to kind of knock the rust off, get back into it? Because it didn't look great, but there's a piece there to say that's difficult for anyone, and not necessarily injury, but being kind of sat on the sidelines for so long to go in and when there's live bullets flying around in a game, So I mean, obviously the Browns hope they will get the Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans that was there, but until we see it on the field, the question marks that will be there. So, ultimately we will see.
You got to think of the contract he got given as well. That's the thing as well. You know what I mean? Yeah. So how much money he's got, so he has that pressure. Like Kenny Pickett's like a rookie who's not earning as much as how much the Browns have put into that one player. It has to work for them. I think
expectations should be high, right? Yeah. Because you're going to give somebody guaranteed money.
You're not giving up 3 first-round picks or whatever it was for Kenny Pickett. You're falling into him at pick 20.
And the worst thing about Kenny Pickett is he may have slightly smaller hands.
I mean, we're not going to say what the worst thing about Deshaun Watson is, right? Because
have you noticed, Bob? We've not done the team bets. Yeah, I thought that's not for maybe this division. Byron, give us your just kind of quick overview on just the Browns, and then hit us with your floor and ceiling for the Cleveland Browns, please.
Cool. And apologies for my internet issues, and apologies if I'm touching on things you've already mentioned there. But Deshaun Watson also didn't play the season before due to. Correct. Yeah, if you covered that, fine. I was going to say, because it's not just 6 games of rust, it's really 23 games of rust. Exactly. So, again, I'm not being a Watson hater as a player. I think he will bounce back. I think he's going to be good this year. I just think it is fair to ask. One of the, and again, you might have touched on this, I love getting Jim Schwartz in the building as DC. He will not take a bit of shit from Jadeveon Clowney isn't there, but Jadeveon Clowney's antics from the end of last season of I'm not going to be a soldier, for what, essentially, isn't going to stand in Jim Schwartz's defense. It sounds ridiculous to say it. Myles Garrett might have a new level unlocked under Jim Schwartz, who
I agree
is a tough DC. He's maybe not the best head coach in the league, but he is exactly what you want in a defensive coordinator, someone who's going to get his troops in line and bust some fucking ass. I think it's a great hire for Cleveland. I think it's exactly what Stefanski needs on the other side of the ball. The Browns I have is really, I think the Browns and the Ravens are two of my most interesting teams to watch this year. I think they're both going to, you kind of say it about bad teams of like outside a quarterback who has a better roster. Well, if Deshaun Watson's anywhere near competent and a top 10 quarterback again, never mind top 5 again, fucking hell, who, including quarterback, has a better roster than Cleveland? O-line is good. Nick Chubb's the best running back in the league, potentially. Wide receiver additions, Elijah Moore, Cedric Tillman, good. Amari Cooper, top professional. David Njoku, always ready for a breakout. He's probably going to end up breaking fantasy hearts a little because he's going to have 4 great games and 13 kind of okay games. Defense is stacked with talent. I mean, I have the Browns going 10-7. I struggle to see how they fall much short of that with that roster. And again, unless I can't put a scenario in when Deshaun Watson is Deshaun Watson from last year because he can't be that bad again. I don't know how they go. I don't know how they have a losing record. They could go maybe 13, 14 wins. I think they're stacked as a team. I'm very interested to watch them this year. And he won't play, but shout out Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was the funnest college quarterback to watch last year. Yeah. But he won't play. But give him some kind of fun gadget snaps somewhere. Come on.
Yeah, definitely one I love watching. I absolutely loved watching him for UCLA last year. It was fantastic. And it'd be interesting if they do need to call on him. That will be interesting. Any point. Bobby, we'll let you have the final word on the Browns. So let's head over to Joe quickly. Joe, floor and ceiling for the Browns.
So similar to Byron, but there is a scenario where it could go terribly wrong. So I think floor could be like 5 or 6. That I don't think it will, but there's still a possibility. But then the ceiling could be, like you said, 12 or 13 wins. I think, like I said, it's one of them teams where if Deshaun clicks, they're high up to get into the playoffs. If he doesn't, then it's a bit of a disaster, and they're around similar to where they were last year, around like their 6 to 8 win mark. But no, I think they're going to have a good year, and I've got them in making the playoffs as well.
Cool, nice. Bit of optimism there. Good. Bobby finishes off then with your Cleveland Browns, floor and ceiling. Start as with your ceiling. Start as with your most optimistic view.
I don't know. I'm not sure I can say it better than either of these two gentlemen. I love the way they're thinking. No, I think our ceiling, I'm going to put us somewhere between 10 to 13 wins. I think our ceilings, we can go 13-4. Obviously, the division's tough. I think this year we take a step outside of the division. I think that's been our Achilles heel maybe over the last 2 to 3 seasons. It's just, if you do the last season, the AFC North was the only division in the NFL where every single team was 500. Every single team was 3-3 within the division. So we know how those games are tough and how we play each other. I think we take a step outside, and I think we improve our ability to win non-division games this year, which will lead to that record. Byron mentioned Bits in Baltimore. That is literally the only team in the division I fear, because that guy number 8 is a difference maker, and for some reason he kills us. The Bengals I'm not worried about so much. Like, Myles Garrett has literally sacked Joe Burrow every single time he's played him, and we actually, roster-wise, again, we match up well with those guys for whatever reason. We play well against those guys for whatever reason. 5-1 against Joe Burrow in his career. But yeah, definitely think we make the playoffs. Don't know whether it'll be as a wild card or division winner, but I have us in the tournament. I'm gonna split the difference. I'm gonna say we win 12 games and get in.
12-5 for the Cleveland Browns. Okay,
yep. And a name to keep an eye on. Siaki Ika Apu. Yeah. Keep an eye on that guy. I think he's gonna be I think Shorts will turn him into a difference maker in the middle of that D line.
Yeah, so certainly a very important role to play in the AFC North to be able to stuff the run in the middle for sure. So we'll stay in state. We've talked about the Cleveland Browns. Let's move on down to Cincinnati and have a talk through the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Bengals last year went 12-4 with that one no contest against the Bills for the Matt Hamlin incident. They won the AFC North for the second straight year. They lost 23-20 to the Chiefs in a very close AFC Championship game. And they're off the bat now. They've had 5 playoff wins in the last 2 seasons after 31 years without one, which is astonishing what Burrow and co have been able to do in the last couple of seasons. Headlines for the Bengals: they signed Orlando Brown on that 4-year, $64 million contract. Bit of an effort to protect Joe Burrow. We've Bobby just alluded to potential problems protecting him and what Myles Garrett can do, and Orlando Brown's certainly a way to try and slow Garrett down. They lost Jesse Bates, Von Belt, and Eli Apple from the secondary, and the Bengals are plus 500 or 5-1 in English money to win the AFC like they did back in 2021. Joe, we'll kick off with you if that's all right for the Bengals. Where do you think they're at, like heading into 2023?
So to me, they are the favourite to win it just because they've won it. They've done the last two. Well, they've been there and thereabouts anyway. So I think because they've got everything in place except probably right tackle's a bit dodgy, and I know the offensive line, but they've probably got the best 3 wide receivers group maybe in the league. They've got one like top 5 quarterback, and they've got one of the best defensive coordinators that managed to keep Lou Anarumo in the building. There you go. In the building, I think that was a big because again, their defense is they never feel like they're a superstar defense. That they've got like big, but they always manage to play well, and especially against like the certain teams. So like for some reason, they're the ones who always make the Chiefs and Mahomes uncomfortable, and they always have a great game plan. And I always think that's from the defensive coordinator. So I think they managed to keep him. So I think they are the favorite. But like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if they finish 3rd or 4th just because how good the division is. So I think they're just one of them unlucky teams where they finally got like a good few years going on there, but then they're in one of the hardest divisions. Like, yeah, unfortunately, they're not in, the AFC South or something like that. So it's we'll see how that goes for them.
Yeah, the Bengals are really interesting because I've really obviously loved what they've done the last couple of years to be able to kind of turn it around and become one of the elite teams in the NFL. Certainly you put them up there in the AFC with the Chiefs and the Bills. I'd say it's kind of the best teams in the AFC, and I think they, and they've shown against the Chiefs and the Bills that they can actually go punch for punch with them. I'm really worried about the Bengals for 2023 because outside of Orlando Brown, I think they've had a really, really poor kind of free agency period and a really bad draft. I think they've had a really, really bad draft. Outside of DJ Turner, which should help them with the secondary losses that they had, I think they've just had a really bad offseason. And I think that will catch up with them quite quickly, and which is a shame given the work that they've done the previous few off seasons where they've been so good. Byron, what kind of, I don't know if I'm just on an island there on my own, but what do you think about the Bengals heading into 2023?
I'm much more confident than you are, certainly. I do kind of agree on the defensive issues, but I think they've done a good job of addressing it. I think Myles Murphy's a good pick. I like all 3 of their first 3 picks, to be honest. Myles Murphy, DJ Turner, and Jordan Battle. Like, you're not going to replace Von Bell in the 3rd round. You're not. But I think they've done a good job, like essentially, of rolling with the punches. I think bringing in Orlando Brown, they still have Jonah Williams there, he might not be happy that he's moved to right tackle, but he didn't get to move to another team, so he's kind of going to have to put up or shut up, And they've still got Lyle Collins in the building. I think they're just really well built from front to back, really. Like, defense, the back end obviously has its issues of veterans leaving, but Myles Murphy, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard as a free D-end rotation is very strong. Burrow, another year older. Chase, another year older. Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins is wonderful as a free pass catchers. I just don't really see where the weakness that holds them down is, really. I have them probably too kindly going 15-2. I have them winning the AFC. I think they're just... Yeah, I think they're really well built. I think Joe Burrow's
15-2.
Yeah, I mean the record, the matchups aren't that rough. They play the Bills, fair enough, but I haven't beaten the Bills. It's in Cincinnati. They play San Fran, but I think again it's at home. They play the Chiefs later on, which is obviously going to be a tough one. But outside of that, I mean, we kind of touched on it a little there. They play the AFC South and the NFC West out of division, which, I mean, you probably wouldn't pick 2 divisions you'd rather play, really. Maybe the NFC South instead of the NFC West, but I think they're better than Seahawks. They're better than the Rams, better than the Cardinals, so... and I think I have them losing to the 49ers. So, yeah, I think they're just... I wouldn't want to bet against Joe Burrow, essentially, is kind of a lot of the takeaway from it. He has it. He might not be Patrick Mahomes, but I'm not sure if there's a quarterback I'd take ahead of Joe Burrow after Patrick Mahomes, truthfully. I'd love Joe Burrow, love that offense, love how they're built. I don't think there's any glaring weaknesses. So 15-2 probably is too kind, though. That is obviously their ceiling.
15-2 is wild. Bobby, we'll throw it over to you. What do you think about your in-state rival and the Cincinnati Bengals? Because you said you weren't too worried about them when you touched on them before. So why? Tell us why that's the case.
I'm on the opposite spectrum as Byron. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are the most vulnerable team in the NFL. I say that because they basically told the entire league, we believe so much in our offense that, we're going to let it ride on defense. And I just don't think you can do that. Like, if they just lost Von Bell, that's one thing. If they just lost Jesse Bates, that's another. If you just lose Eli Apple, that's another. You lost 75% of your starting secondary. That's a problem in a passing league. Especially when every team around it, like the Ravens have picked up Odell Beckham. We've picked up more speed. We've seen what George Pickens has the potential to be. For you to drop 75% of your starting secondary, and over the last 2 seasons, the Cincinnati Bengals have been notoriously slow starters to start the season. They've lost a bulk of their games early in the season. When your defense is supposed to carry the team until your offense revs it up. I think that's a problem. I think they start slow. I could easily see them coming out of the gates 2-4, 2-5, and then picking it up later and trying to play catch up, which is going to be difficult in this division if everybody plays up to if the Ravens, Browns, and the Steelers kind of play up to their potential. So I just think they played a dangerous game in the offseason. And I know they have to get ready to give Joe Burrow his money. You got to get ready to give Jamar Chase his money. But I think they cut off their nose to spite their face playing that game with the secondary. Just look at us. Look at our game against the Jets. Miscommunications in the secondary can cost you a 13-point lead in 2 minutes. They're running the risk of just letting that slow start ruin their whole season.
Yeah. Give us then, Bobby, what you feel the floor and ceiling is for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2023.
I was their ceiling is probably second, third highest in the NFC. They are a potential Super Bowl team. No way around it. They're an offensive juggernaut. Just like you say, it's hard to bet against Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase is a stud. They're the only team in the league who potentially has 3 number 1 wide receivers in the lineup. I like the addition of Irv Smith. They trying to shore up the offensive line again to protect Joe Burrow from Myles Garrett and T.J. Watts of the world. So it's their ceiling is what it is, but I think their floor could be scary. This could be a year where it's like, this could be one of those where did it all go wrong seasons. I think they run that risk. I could see at worst, this could be a 7-win team.
It's an interesting one, like I say, and I'm sort of leaning to your side of things, Bobby, where I feel they've an opportunity to really they've got. I know we had that soundbite and clip. The window's always open when Joe Burrow's around, but I feel they've just it's a team there where they can just make a couple more clever moves. They really can. And I think they they're not far away, but can push the Chiefs. But I just think there's no complacency. I just didn't get what they were trying to do in the offseason. Byron, we'll head it back to you, floor and ceiling, before we had to Joe and finish it off.
Floor 15 wins. Ceiling is 15-2 and a Super Bowl appearance where I have them not winning the Super Bowl, but I have them winning the AFC. I'm kind of stunned that people have the floor this low on the Bengals. My floor would be 11, 10 wins. And just before I hand over to Joe, let's be careful about overhyping Eli Apple here. Eli Apple is still a free agent. Like, if that's what you're missing from your secondary, you can get him back in the building. Eli Apple, not exactly Revis Island. So, I have him 15-2, which is their ceiling. I just go through and pick all the games. So I understand that obviously in a football season, there's more nuance in that, but it's just to give me kind of a base of what I work on my previews for. I think 15-2 is obviously their ceiling. I don't see him winning less than 11, though. I think that's really hard to see.
Fair. Cool. Joe finishes off on the Bengals.
Cool, yeah. So I say floor 9. I'll be surprised if they go under 500, and then probably like ceiling probably like 13, 14 and winning the AFC or being close with the Chiefs anyway, like the last few years. So I think right now them and the Chiefs probably the best two in the AFC going into it, where it feels like the preview, but again, anything can happen, especially in a tough division. So
yeah, cool. All right then.
But we'll throw a Byron that the Eli Apple count is not because he was a stud by any means.
I know.
No, it's just a continuity thing. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, very true. And a lot of change.
Eli Apple and Reeves.
It's good stuff. Right, let's finish it off by taking a trip to Baltimore. And let's talk about the Ravens. The Ravens last year finished 10-7. They lost to the Cincinnati Bengals in the wild card round. Lamar Jackson went down with a knee injury in week 13, and we didn't see him again. The Ravens lost 4 games while holding, and that's supposed to say 10-plus points, second half leads. So not just leads, second half leads. The Ravens caught down a lot, chased down by teams in the especially fourth quarter last season. Big off-season headlines. How could it not be? The Lamar Jackson saga was finally resolved. He signed a 5-year, $260 million contract. And also, Odell Beckham Jr. now calls Baltimore home. He was signed to a 1-year, $15 million contract. Bobby, let's hear your views on kind of what the Ravens have done and where you think they're at heading into the season.
Personally, just as a Browns fan, again, for us, it's the scariest team to me. Like, they just have our number for some odd reason. Like I said, Lamar Jackson, while I don't think he's a top 10 quarterback in this league, he is probably the third best football player in the NFL. And that's just scary. Just him being between the white lines isn't enough to frighten any DC. The one thing for them is Odell Beckham. I think that's either going to be their biggest payday, biggest thing they've done, or it's going to be their biggest regret. I personally don't think he will play more than 9 games. Don't know why, just got feeling, not wishing it for the guy, but just, I mean, we talk about Deshaun Watson missing time. Odell Beckham hasn't played a game since 2020 or 2021. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Super Bowl was the last.
Right.
Last
Exactly.
time, so he would have gone a full 18 months.
On his way to Super Bowl MVP. Well, not he wouldn't have got MVP.
He could have been.
But he was playing so well. I fully
he
take
was.
on board what you say, though. Sorry.
He was. No, he was. He was playing. It was so sad to see that happen. But again, for him and being injured the 2 years prior to that, to come back and try and be a number 1 wide receiver. Granted, Baltimore doesn't have this free-flowing air raid offense. Which could save him, save a few routes on that knee, but I just don't have 100% confidence he can make it through a full season.
And is there the bit there where the Ravens, because I don't really expect to see a lot of Odell Beckham Jr. maybe till we start getting to November, December. I really don't. He's there to be the difference maker in those big games, in those close games. And give Lamar somebody that's reliable, someone who can make the big plays in the big moments. I've just got a feeling we won't see him that much, and maybe he's in and out of games, and maybe he's only in for half the, a quarter of snaps, half the snaps, building it up over until we start to get to mid to late November and December. So it's an interesting one with Odell. But sorry, Bobby, just jumped in.
No, you're all good because those are all valid points. My biggest thing on the Ravens is can that defense hold a lead? Like that's really what caused it. They blew a 21-point second half lead to the Dolphins in a game that should have been over. Can they hold a lead? Like they're kind of what they went through last season is what I see the Bengals doing. It's like they're going to build a lead and then that defense is just going to give way on you. But if they can shore that up, they have the second best coach in the division. They're one of those teams, they just play hard. They're like the Miami Heat of the NFL. That when they get on that field, put them pads and helmets on, they're going to give you everything they have every game. And it's just hard to keep teams like that down. I think their ceiling is kind of like Browns. I think 12, 13 wins. I think their floor is around the 500 mark. They could be 9-8, 8-9. Depends on just what you get from Odell and the health of Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. becoming more and more of a question as the seasons go by now, aren't they? Where he just seems to be picking up more and more injuries, and we could get into a whole discussion about is that because of the play style? Is that because of how much he runs the ball? Does he open himself up to it a bit more? But ultimately, Lamar Jackson can't win you games if he's sat on the sideline backed up.
And can he keep that hunt? Because I'll tell you, a lot of eyeballs are on Lamar Jackson because of how last season ended. I think a lot of people thought he could have been on the field in the playoffs, and he's sitting out for that bag. Okay, you got your bag. Now you got to do it on the field. We need to see MVP Lamar Jackson again. We don't want to see this in and out of the lineup, the commercial hype, the Nike train. We don't want to see the machine at work. We want to see you win some meaningful football games.
I think that's a big knock on Lamar until he proves people maybe a bit wrong. And that might be a bit harsh, but until he does and goes out there in December and January and wins games. Joe,
what happens when you get $200 million?
It does, yeah. It's a nice problem to have, though, right? Joe, what do you think are kind of the moves that the Ravens have made? Let me get it right in terms of to support Lamar this offseason.
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's all about Odell and it's all about injuries, really, with Baltimore. It feels like that every single year. When you've top two wide receivers at Odell and Bateman, who's obviously had his injuries worries as well, and you've got Mark Andrews as well. But if you lose your top two, where they've missed quite a lot of games, then you're relying on the running a game again, and just Mark Andrews and maybe Zay Flowers, who's a rookie wide receiver, and you're not quite sure how that's going to turn out. And obviously, and Ronnie Stanley as well. He's had his injuries the last few years, keeping Lamar, and that affects Lamar's injuries as well. So I think it's most years, and I think going into this, it's all about can they stay healthy, because they haven't the last few years. And I'm actually surprised when I was looking at their squad, like their defensive line is a lot weaker than I feel like it's ever been. It feels like the Baltimore Ravens are always like, oh, their defensive line will be fine. It's the strongest point. But it feels like this year it's like reversed. But it feels like they've gone in more attack, but they've not shored up that line. I think they've got decent backfield and the cornerbacks and everything are good for Ravens. But like you said, if they keep costing these leads, then obviously there's something not going right. And obviously the new offensive coordinator as well. I'm curious to see how that works, because it sounds like it wasn't working out by the end of last year. To see Tom Munkin and see how, if they are going to throw the ball a bit more and not be so predictable. So I'm sure was it last year or year before? I think Lamar was saying, defensive linemen are calling out our players right here because they just know what we're doing. And if it's getting to that point, someone's going to get fired right there. So I'm curious how that's going to turn out as well. If it's going to be more throwing and less pounding and getting injured and whatnot.
Yeah, there's a bit where I think you have to, especially now you paid the man, you've got to try and protect him. You've got to let him be able to show what kind of passer he is, and I think he is. I think he will be fine as a pocket pass is not the right phrase, but certainly, certainly, they transition to that. Obviously, Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, is gone, and they've switched that out. There's one that I found quite odd. Marcus Peters went from that secondary, who's still a free agent. I don't think he had a particularly bad season or poor season last year. He might be one that comes back. But yeah, he might go to Cincinnati. He could do some help there. And just Marcus Peters is one who I really, really rate. I find out that one, he's still a free agent, and maybe now it's just biding the time, and he will end up on a team. But yeah, I just found it bizarre that Baltimore let him walk out the door. Byron, what do you think? Kind of where the Ravens are at then? Kind of where do you think they're going to end up in 2023?
I think they're going to be better than last year, but I have them at 11-6, and I think I'm really interested to watch them. I was surprised it took so long to mention Todd motherfucking Monken, who is a passing game beast. He is one of the most fun OCs in the NFL. Jameis Winston's Bucs teams were so good to watch. I mean, you can get Jameis Winston to look like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He had Baker Mayfield at his absolute best. I know 2019 Cleveland under Freddie Kitchens wasn't, Bobby, I don't need to tell you, it wasn't a highlight, but that offense was ticking. Nick Chubb was incredible. Baker Mayfield looked like a number one draft pick. I'm real excited for Todd Monken. I'm really excited to free Lamar Jackson from the D-line calling out the players to let's just pound it with Gus Edwards and Patrick Ricard and anybody we can drag off the street to run the ball and do RPO 95% of the plays. I mean, OBJ isn't going to be rookie OBJ. He's not there anymore. But I think he's going to start the season start the season at September. I don't think they're going to wait to see him unleashed. I have no idea if he'll play 17 games. How can you? His knees are held on by whatever they're held on by at this point. But when we last seen him, he was a real good football player. He's had time to recover physically. Maybe a little rust needs to be knocked off, but I think Zay Flowers is a real good receiver too. Rashad Bateman has been injured, but he's certainly talented. Mark Andrews is the number 2 tight end in the league. Isaiah Likely kind of shone when Mark Andrews was not fully playing snaps last year, which I think you might see a lot of Isaiah Likely in 2 tight end sets this year with Mark Andrews. I love what they have on offense. They haven't really made any additions. I'd like to see them add another running back behind J.K. Dobbins, who looked real good on one leg last year. Hopefully, it looks really good on 2 legs this year. But behind that, you have like Gus Edwards. They took a rookie, Keontae Mitchell, I think it is. There's plenty of good free agent old running backs who they can plug in and sit there behind J.K. Dobbins if they need to at any point. But despite all that, I don't really have them with a record that inspires such excitement. I think they're just going to be a real fun team to watch. I think the questions on defense are very valid. Roquan Smith in year 2 should be improved, should be an actual game changer, because I think he might be the best middle linebacker in the league, unless I'm missing somebody off the top of my head. But he's certainly in the top 5. And for a 6th round pick, and obviously they've now paid him because Chicago didn't want to. But man, you take a Roquan Smith in the 6th round, certainly. It beats Allen Robinson in the 7th. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with them. I'm really excited to watch the offense, basically. I love Lamar Jackson. I think it could be, it could be his, maybe not MVP year again, but I just can't wait to watch him unleashing a real offense.
Yeah, exciting to see, certainly, with the changes in Baltimore have the desired effect. Let's wrap up the Baltimore Ravens then. Bobby, let's go to you next. Give us your floor and ceiling on the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, I thought just like they could win the division. That's their ceiling. I got them as a 12-win team. Their floor, again, it's all about the injury bug. Can they resist it? If they can, or if they can't, they could be looking again at, you're looking at a 7-8-win team, just because of the way they're constructed and everything's being built around Lamar. But yeah, they might be the scariest team in ever. They're just a team you just don't want to play week in and week out. Like, you look at your schedule, you see the Ravens, you're just like, it's just a nightmare on both sides of the ball. Like, so there you go. 12 wins or bust.
12 wins or bust. Cool. Good stuff for the Ravens. Joe finishes off with the Ravens. Floor and ceiling for the Baltimore Ravens in 2023.
So I think I should just put myself on repeat, because I think this I'm doing for the most teams. So I think floor 7 or 8, ceiling 12, 13. I think it's one of them divisions. It could just go either way, and they'll probably all land around 10, and it'll be interesting. Trying to work out how the who's going to actually make it, who needs what. Yeah, or the tiebreaker in the last game of the season. I think it's going to be. That tight.
Cool. Appreciate it. Very insightful, Joe.
Yeah, no worries.
Same as everyone else. Cool. Well, let's start having a look and let's see who's going to put their money where the mouth is. Let's have a look at the futures markets. Then we're going to look first of all at the divisions and playoffs. So for the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals are favourites, plus 125 to win the division. The Ravens plus 250, the Browns plus 360, and the Steelers plus 550. I mean, not necessarily gives you division winners, but where do you see the value there then? Is the value in the Bengals at plus 125 to win the division?
I have them winning the division at 15-2, obviously, and I would struggle to bet them at plus 125 just because, I'd probably have them winning basically every division game just because I think they're better than every divisional team. I don't have the actual predictor at this moment, but they could go 12 wins and the Ravens or the Browns could go 13 wins. That isn't ridiculous. At 125, I can't find value there.
Even with the 1-5 history against the Browns, you got them winning you got them sweeping us?
I don't know. I'm just saying, if they're winning 15, well, I must do. They're winning 15 games. I think I have them losing to the 49ers. I think the Jags maybe, or the Chiefs. I can't remember who it is. I don't think it's a divisional team. And like I say, when I do these things, I'm not ducking into historical trend. It's just I just like to set a baseline rather than just going this team's good. They're going to win 12 games.
Right.
Well, who are they playing? I actually want to try and look at least a little. And so plus 125, I can't bet. If I was picking something, I would pick the Browns at plus 360 just because of the values there. And I think, on a 53-man roster, they probably have the most talented and the most sturdy roster there. Obviously, I don't have them winning the division, but that would be the value play.
Cool. Bobby, you're there in Sin City in Las Vegas. Obviously, right where the sports books are. Although I guess they're everywhere. I guess they're everywhere now, but the home of the sports books. Kind of. Again, I know you're going to be slightly biased, but where do you think
bias
the value plays? Where do you think the value plays are in those odds for the division and playoffs?
I agree with Byron. I mean, the values with the Browns. Just they have the roster, they have the talent, they have everything you would need to win football games. So value-wise, you could easily see them winning the division. If I was just going to randomly put money, it'd be the Browns. But looking into the game of football, I would have to, if I'm going to reach in my pocket and actually pull out money, I would also pick the Bengals. Like, it's just all the teams in the division over the last few years, they played the best football. They have the guys who have experience winning, know what they're doing. They played in big games. They've won big games. They've lost big games. Solid. Obviously, you need a quarterback to win. They have one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the league. It's hard to bet against them. The Ravens have been inconsistent. Obviously, everybody knows what we are, and we know the Steelers they're just not ready to win. So if I'm going in my pocket, I'm picking the Bengals, but just value, just for shits and giggles to see if I could win, I'd pick the Browns. I think they both make the playoffs. Honestly, I think this division gets 3 in.
3, and who's the one that misses out then?
It's Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers. Interesting. Joe, what's anything kind of shouting out to you or anything that's tickling your fancy?
Yeah, I think I'm just agreeing with everyone with the Browns pick, to be honest, because I think, like you said, I think the Bengals are favourite, but I think if the Bengals don't win it, then for me, I think the Browns are more likely to win it than the Ravens. And I think the Ravens not making it at 130, I think that could be interesting because they're a kind of team where they're either going to be really good or, like we said, the injury bug, and they're not going to make the playoffs. And with how good the AFC is in general, because it feels like, there's 3 from the North, there's going to be 3 from the East, there's going to be a couple from the West. And when you start working, it's like, well, not all of these teams are going to make it in. So which ones are the ones who are not going to make it? And I think teams like the Ravens could be the ones on the outside when you're at the end of the day. Because I was just looking at the schedule, like the last 3 games are like the 49ers, Ravens. I'm sorry, 49ers, Dolphins, and then Steelers. So if it's like coming into and you've got the 49ers and Dolphins as 2 of the last 3 games, then you might struggle to actually sneak in. So I think them not making the playoffs could be a good shout as well at 130.
Yeah, that's what I like, certainly. The Ravens plus 130, I think, is to not make the playoffs. I also, conversely, like the Steelers plus 130 to make the playoffs. I think realistically, the Steelers will have a winning record. I think we'll see shortly. I think their line is 8.5 wins, but I think you get slightly better value. So if they're going to win 9 games anyway, do you take the extra price on that being enough to get into the playoffs and earn a little bit extra? I'll have to see because it's on the next slide. I just tried looking it up on the sports book, but I didn't get a chance. So, I think that might be the value play I was looking at, but I could be completely wrong, and we'll see in a second. Let's have a look then at those win totals to finish us off, and we're doing it for time as well. I was right, you get the value on it, and if the Steelers can just find a way to win nine games. But the spread, I think this is the tightest spread as well in terms of you've got kind of the win total lines, no team under 8.5 on the win totals lines from the sports book. We've got the Bengals at 11.5 is the line, overs plus 105, under minus 130. The Ravens 9.5 wins, over minus 150, under plus 120. The Browns, which I think this is a bit of a low line, but the Browns 8.5 wins, minus 180 over, plus 150 under, and I mentioned Steelers 8.5 wins again, minus 140 over, plus 110 under. Yeah, what's screaming out at you guys there in terms of where there's potential money to be made?
I think the whole thing that looks like a real good parlay right there. I may put a couple bucks on that for every team to go over.
Every team to go over, so no AFC North team to win less than 9 games.
Yeah, that's a real good parlay.
Mm-hmm. That is interesting. And it just goes to show kind of what we've talked about, how tight the division is viewed with these lines. Joe, anything screaming out for you for the win totals? What do you like?
Yeah, it's like most of the ones I'm thinking is like you said, it's like not the greatest value money wise. I think if I was going to go Ravens not making the playoffs, then you probably add that to the under 9.5 because we'd have to lose probably. Yeah, if they get to like 8, if they get to 10, they're going to make the playoffs. So I'll probably go under Ravens and then not make playoffs, but not be confident placing that. That'll be, just like holding on to the money when I'm handing over because I'll not be super confident with that. But, that's where the value is compared to everything else because, all the other ones. Maybe Bengals over 11.5 as well. But again, that was like my top end of the ceiling. So I'd also be not too confident in that. Bet.
I like that double of potentially to do it this way in terms of talked about potentially the Ravens. The Ravens not making the playoffs, but I suppose you could tally that up with the under on wins as well. So which is interesting. You just get a little bit more value. Plus 120 and plus 130 combined gets you a little bit more. Byron, Bobby, anything else shouting out for you guys?
I mean, I'm repeating myself a little, but
15 wins for the Bengals, yeah.
I mean, the over 11.5 and the over 8.5 for the Browns is a beautiful little double, I think. I mean, 8.5 feels insulting. I don't know.
It feels low, doesn't it?
I don't know how the Browns have a losing record in 2023, even if it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson taking snaps at quarterback. Like, just pound the ball with Nick Chubb if that's the case. Like,
when you compare it to last season we pulled out 7 with a backup QB. So that is kind of a backup QB and a tougher schedule.
Yeah, I just don't see how they win 8 games or fewer. I think that's a tough, not a tough line.
It's
the
national media, and they just don't like Deshaun Watson. That's what it is.
I mean, that's absolutely fine. But if that gives us a chance to make a few bucks on it, then hate him. Go ahead. And I'd love to double it up with the 11.5 on the Bengals. If I'm only betting one, though, give me the over on the Browns. Smash.
What do you think? Have you checked the price on over 14.5 Bengals wins, Byron? No,
I haven't. No, I don't think I'd bet it unless it was friendly though.
I think it was pretty friendly.
I mean, maybe I'll have a little peek. I do have a few season ones though. If you want to dive into other bets,
go for it. Yeah, finish us off then.
So a few. The Offensive Player of the Year award has gone to a wide receiver 3 of the last 4 years and the last 2 years combined, and yet Jamar Chase is plus 1,200. I've heard the Bengals might have some issues with a secondary, so they might be slinging the ball a little bit. And if I'm slinging the ball a bit and I have Jamar Chase on the field, I think I might sling it to Jamar Chase a lot. Just a thought. And at plus 1,200, I might bet it. And on a related note, Joe Burrow, he's pretty high in the favourites for it, but he's still plus 800 for passing the yards leader in the NFL. And again, if they're going to sling the ball a lot, 8-1 sounds pretty good for. And I mean, you're not going to be able to parallel those bets because of the season specials, but I mean, plus 1,200 on Chase to be OPOY and Joe Burrow passing yards 800. I think are both solid bets. And then not as outsidery in terms of numbers, but plus 1,000 is Zay Flowers' most rookie receiving yards.
Oh, nice.
I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is favourite. Jordan Addison might be favourite, actually, but then you've got JSN, Quinton Johnson ahead. And I think they're all pretty crowded rooms. Jordan Addison maybe not so much, but he also has Justin Jefferson ahead of him.
Yeah.
Who, again, like Jamar Chase, he might get a few targets this year. Whereas I think outside of Mark Andrews, you can maybe make an argument Zay Flowers is going to get the most targets in the Baltimore passing game. And I think they're going to pass the ball a lot because Todd Monken loves to sling the F out of the ball. Yeah. So I think at plus 1,000, I think that's a real solid bet.
Nice. I was having a look just to see the price on the odds for Deshaun Watson being comeback player of the year, but he's not even listed on the.
Well, that means he's definitely going to be a friendly price. He's going to be plus Bengals over 14.5. It kind of feels like you're betting DeMar Hamlin versus the field at this point.
Yeah, it is going to be DeMar Hamlin. Sorry, I found Deshaun. He's 100 to 1, so plus 10,000.
Yeah, that's worth $10.
Yeah.
Question for you though, Byron.
Do
you think? How much do you think Jamar Chase is affected by Joe Burrow? Meaning he isn't going to be given the credit to win Offensive Player of the Year because his quarterback is Joe Burrow.
It's a very good question because Justin Jefferson didn't have those concerns with Kirk Cousins.
Right.
No, I think it's a good question, but I think if they both put up the numbers they can, because I think they're both top 2, 3, 4.
Basically, how many yards do you think Jamar Chase would have to have in order to overcome the fact that Joe Burrow is his quarterback?
He'd probably have to break the record, wouldn't he?
I don't think he needs to break the record. I think he just needs to be the number 1 wide receiver in football. And if he can put up more touchdowns than he did last year, I mean, again, he missed some games last year, but I think it's kind of there. I think it's him or Jefferson to be OPOY. unless a running back comes out and smashes it. Nick Chubb is an idea as well, because I think Nick Chubb's in for a banger of a year.
I think his production will be. I think everything around his production will take in. Like, I think his yards per carry will go up. I think his actual yards will come down. It's going to be a weird season for Nick Chubb, but yeah.
My main thing of that is that they just don't have Kareem Hunt, which,
right.
But I think they will pass the ball more, which I think is obviously plays into that. So, I didn't even look up Nick Chubb as an option. I just think if I was trying to find a running back, though, it's kind of difficult. I think San Francisco, their weapons are great, but they're going to spread it around too much to get him like them high numbers. I think Elijah Mitchell and Mixon, etc., just to keep him fresh. And that's kind of why Chase is.
But is that the issue with Chase, though, that you've got the two other wide receivers? Well, Jefferson, it's just Jefferson.
Yeah, potentially.
So like, it might look at the end of the year where even if Chase is like the number one wide receiver, the other two might be still be in the top 10. So they're like, well, Boa's just run 3 top 10, so he would be more than likely to get it rather than no one's really going to give it to Kirk Cousins, even if Jefferson, because most people are not big fans of Cousins.
Carrying Cousins.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's fair. But like Cooper Kupp won it the year before, no one said he was carrying Matthew Stafford.
It's true. Yeah. Cool. Right, any more lines or bets to shout out, gentlemen? No, silence across the board. I will take silences. No, we're good for time this week as well. We're bang on 1 hour, 11 minutes. So that wraps us up for another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. That was the state of the AFC North. Gentlemen, as always, thank you very much. Co-host Byron and Joe, thanks as always. Bobby G, great guest. Thanks ever so much for coming on. Best of luck to you and your Cleveland Browns in 2023. Enjoy the rest of your day in Las Vegas. We'll catch you next time. Go give us a follow. Go give Bobby G a follow, first of all. Bobby, just give us one last shout out in terms of where the guys can go find you.
I was going to be GameTime_Bobby G on Instagram and Twitter. Get at me. I respond to everybody. I don't duck anyone. And, of course, shout out to you guys. Thanks for having me on this good Sunday morning. And shout out to the Let's Talk Sport Network, Dan Harris, for putting all this together. That's it. That's all I got, fellas.
Cool. Thanks very much, Bobby. And hopefully we'll have you back on sometime in the near future. We'll catch you next time. We'll have a look at I have to write myself. We're on to the Souths. NFC South will be the next in our State of the Division series, so that'll be up next. That'll be a fun one. One next for sure. But go give our show a follow. You can find us on Spotify. Good Teams and Great Teams Cover. Follow for notifications of new episodes. You can catch us on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and now Threads at GTW_GTC. Twitter 2.0, maybe. But thanks very much, and we will catch you next time.